Hello, my partner Lisa and I are here today to discuss a digital repository that is the first of its kind. And we think it has the potential to transform teaching and learning. In what we all hope is a post-pandemic world, we know that online learning is here to stay. And we think EBSCOed can be a catalyst that maximizes the potential that can exist in blended learning. So my name is Patrick Chappell. I am recently retired public educator of 28 years. I was a teacher and administrator in Homewood Schools in Birmingham and retired as the director of instruction. And in a small district like Homewood, I wore lots of hats, but most of what I really enjoyed and focused on in my work was professional learning and leading change and bringing about innovations in our district. So in retiring, that was perfect to work with Lisa Silver here at Publishers Warehouse, because that's what she and Publishers Warehouse do every day. Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Silver, president of Publishers Warehouse, which is the state textbook depository for Alabama. I'm also a career educator with 30 years in Alabama, where I've served as a teacher, a counselor, and a publishing partner.
All right. So we're going to get right started in our presentation. All right, so I'm an old English teacher. So in that mindset, I do love a good metaphor. So we're going to start the presentation with a metaphor that'll sort of set the stage for what we want to talk to you about. So I want you to think of your kitchen as a school, and think of all of us as educators, teachers, administrators, technology specialists. We're all the chefs, okay? And so we all know today that so many ingredients are required to prepare good instruction or a good dish for our students. But let's just think of some of the things that educators have to juggle, some of the many ingredients that would have to go in just right in a dish to make a good dish for students. So high quality instructional resources, big buzzword today. There's been kind of a pendulum swing back and forth between teachers using the textbook 100% of the time completely, to sometimes now teachers haven't used it as much as at all. And research is showing that that is not a good way to teach and learn, and that high quality instructional resources matter. And so choosing the right ones, right resources, and with all the different supports that go in those is an important job. That's an important ingredient for educators. Certainly always at the heart of teaching and learning is using a variety of instructional methods, many different ways that teachers can go about their classroom, engaging students and involving in the learning. For example, in today's age, a lot of teachers are struggling trying to implement like a flipped classroom model, where students might learn something at home and then school becomes the practice point, or sort of a flip of the traditional classroom mindset. That's yet another complicated ingredient for educators. And of course, when they're designing activities in school, it's not enough just to teach the standard, but you've got to teach kids how to think critically with that standard, how standards connect, how they intersect with each other to create new learning, and whatever creativity goes along with that, whether it's on the teacher's end to present that standard or a student's end to present an assessment on it. Yet another complicated ingredient for educators, chefs. And then through all of this is now information and technology literacy. They're both separate and also kind of combined a little bit. In the new ELA standards that are going to be implemented here in the next year or two, you'll notice for English and reading teachers, they're actually standard around information literacy, technology literacy. We know that students learning those things happens best in context of content, but that's pretty hard. That's another new recipe that teachers are trying to juggle and learn along with everything else with their regular content. Of course, collaboration is a great instructional method itself, but it's more than that now, because collaboration too is a standard. Because we know in the 21st century, students and all of us as adults need to be able to collaborate and work well with others. So not only is that a good way to learn, but it's a skill that kids kids need to learn. So that's another ingredient in the pot. And relevancy and connection to kids today, the 21st century learners, never more important. If an instructional standard is just sitting there in isolation, kids can't make a real connection to it and don't really learn it. So teachers have to, with that ingredient, are always looking to try to connect the learning standard to something in the real world that they can learn. And so finally, at the heart of all of these ingredients is technology itself. Now, we use the word technology as this big nebulous term that seems all encompassing. It's both a tool that a teacher might use for their method, and it's also a standard, as we've said, and it's also a skill that kids need to develop. So that is one of the more complicated ingredients. So educators are juggling all these different ingredients, trying to put them together in some kind of combination to make a good dish for their students, to make a good educational outcome for them. Now, with that though, we ended with technology as an ingredient and what a big ingredient that is. It's a pretty complicated one. And so we're going to kind of continue the metaphor here. Think of technology as salt, as the ingredient salt. Everybody knows it's there and everybody uses it and it's important, but sometimes we don't know how to use salt. Some people like stuff real salty and some people don't like a lot of salt. My wife would say that there's a whole lot of other spices other than salt that add a whole lot of different flavors. That's a little overwhelming to me because I'm not much of a cook. So what you find is chefs, sometimes they're cooking and they're saying, is this really the flavor I wanted to add by putting in salt? Or did the salt just totally overpower the dish? I mean, I think we've all gotten dishes before where there's so much salt on something you can't even eat it. And then, do I add enough? Everybody has a different taste. Is it enough salt? So what you end up with is that as an all-encompassing spice that can be overused. So that's kind of like technology. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And for a busy teacher, remember juggling all those other ingredients, technology becomes an even more complicated ingredient that they're having to juggle. So what ends up happening is that sometimes technology becomes a barrier to good instruction rather than a support. And when teachers feel overwhelmed and see technology as a barrier, they drop it. They don't use it and they go back to what they know is comfortable, which is the old way of doing things. So that's an important consideration.
So we are on a mission to improve access to all of your state-approved materials, including your purchased, licensed digital materials through your textbook adoptions. Our goal is to remove any technology barrier to learning that exists today. So about 3 years ago, we had a light bulb moment where we asked ourselves, could we get publishers, those publishers that we're already working with through these textbook adoptions, to provide us with access to their digital materials where we could provide a true single sign-on to all of your content, regardless of the publisher. We know that creating a recipe for success through the single sign-on repository, EBSCOed, that we have created is to assist you in removing all of those barriers and to bring everything for the first time ever together. So what you see on the slide is a single sign-on repository, EBSCOed. You can find it at alabama.ebscoed.com, ebscoed.com, excuse me. And what you're going to find is a dashboard that contains several things. First and foremost, it's going to contain all of your access to your state-approved materials that you have adopted and purchased through Publishers Warehouse. Again, it doesn't matter the publisher. It'll all be under that single sign-on access. You're also going to find all of your subscriptions for your Alabama Virtual Library. In addition to that, you will find in grade bands all of the open access materials that the state currently provides. So we are very excited about EBSCO Ed. So you know what we have done is we have solved the issue of no more multiple logins. We have a true single sign-on that is created for your school district. Does not matter the LMS that you're using, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we go through the presentation. So for the first time, we brought all of your resources together under one umbrella. This creates a recipe for your success.
So Lisa's told you what EBSCOed is, and what we're going to do in the rest of the presentation is kind of talk through some of its benefits and how it looks to the different users. So five ingredients, if you will, in EBSCOed to think about for different perspectives of users. One of them is this resource provides great accountability and quality control for school districts. So if you're in a we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but basically the tool will enable you to know who's doing what in your district. New content comes preloaded into the district once the purchase is made. So that saves a whole lot of time, particularly for the folks I think that are largely participating in this presentation, technology administrators and specialists. Lisa mentioned a single sign or log on, and she's going to talk a little bit more later about what that really means. Most importantly, going back to the technology as a barrier mindset, EBSCOed provides easy access for users. It creates a barrier-free environment. And remember, when teachers are overwhelmed, students or administrators, they avoid it. Well, if you remove the barriers, then that's something that creates makes it easier to use for all the users. And finally, ingredient 5 is easy ordering of new resources. We'll talk about that at the end. So what Publishers Warehouse, remember Publishers Warehouse is the textbook depository for the state of Alabama. We're accustomed to working with a variety of different publishing companies. Schools typically order their materials through us, through a variety of different publishers. We have contracts with all of these publishers already to deliver textbooks to students and to schools. But what we've done this year is we've formed partnerships, a deeper partnership with these publishing companies, so that the content has been brought under the umbrella of EBSCOed. Lisa mentioned the single sign-on log-on, so now all of the different materials that digital materials that come with each of these publishers' products can be accessed through EBSCOed. So rather than going through, let's say you have 3 or 4 of these publishers that students or teachers use, rather than having to log into each and every one, you just log in to EBSCOed, and all of those materials are accessible at a grade level or content area. Similarly, we have partnerships with some of the folks that you guys as technology leaders, some of the people that you use and rely on. Certainly, the Alabama Virtual Library is a resource, but then there are also learning management systems like Schoology and ClassLink and Google Classroom. Increasingly, teachers are using those platforms for content presentation in a blended environment, whether students are in the classroom, sometimes they access content this way, or whether they're at home, they're accessing content this way. It's an organized structure for learning. But in the past, you would have to go outside of these platforms in order to access the content. But with the partnership we have formed with these companies, students will now be able to access, and teachers and parents can access the content, the textbook instructional content through EBSCOed through these platforms. And of course, PowerSchool, we're all focused on the PowerSchool integration that's coming about. We too have a partnership with them. And Lisa will talk a little bit more about that later.
So we've been really busy for this past year. And while currently you can go to alabama.ebscoed.com and you will find by grade band all of your open access resources, as well as your Alabama Virtual Library resources. We've been busy over the past year adding content to the repository. So in August of this year, starting with the math adoption, you'll be able to access materials in your account. So right this minute, we have over 1,800 math titles from the current math adoption that have been added to EBSCOed. We also have over 10,000 authenticated deep links to publisher materials. What does that mean for you? That means that in the future, you are going to avoid all of those integration meetings that you have had to have over the past few years. You're going to purchase your materials, and your licensed materials are going to show up in your account. So that is very exciting. To date, we have over half of Alabama districts that have signed on to get their EBSCOed app. And we have about 350,000 students that are connected and beginning to use EBSCOed, and more than 37,000 teachers. So we want to talk with you soon if your district is not connected yet. Again, this is all free for the schools. This was purchased by the state. So you have it available, ready today. So what we want to do is we want to improve your experiences that are consistent across the board from our district administrators, our technology directors, our teachers, our students, and families. Again, easy and consistent access will make the difference in whether or not these resources are used in the future.
All right, so I'm going to talk through the benefits from some different school perspectives. You've heard some of the benefits of EBSCOed, but let's dig a little deeper at how it benefits different roles in the district. So let's say you're a district administrator. You work at the central office of a school district. Maybe you're a curriculum director, such as myself. So one of the responsibilities you have as a curriculum director, you're responsible certainly to the superintendent, the board, to you guys that are technology directors. Certainly we're responsible to you, and very much to the chief schools financial officer. We're responsible for the use of the materials. We are spending taxpayer money. We're authorizing the use of taxpayer money to buy instructional resources, and we want to know that what we're buying is being used. And so as a district administrator, I always felt responsible for and accountable to the use of a resource. So when there are barriers to access, when teachers and folks can't remember a logon or where a link is to find something, so therefore they're overwhelmed and they don't use it, then I'm left trying to explain to my higher ups, well, why aren't we using this? We paid six figures for this, and I don't see the use of it. So removing this barrier really helps district administrators with the issue of quality control and accountability. It's much easier for folks to use it. It's right there on the screen when they log in. All the resources are there, so people in the district are going to be more likely to access that. Of course, what that means is there's a much better return on the investment. When you look at usage reports, what you'll see is more people have a tendency to use what's been purchased because it's easily accessible. That also, if you're a district administrator or technology director, it's easy with EBSCOed to look and see reports and to see what resources are available and what's there to use, so that you can help guide and make sure that's happening. The biggest one that's a benefit for everybody is that logins, links, and passwords are no longer a barrier to learning. You log in once, and everything that you need is right there in whatever format you're entering it into. It's also for district administrators, when you're going through the yearly textbook adoption cycle, ordering materials once adopted can be a very long and complicated process. To date, there are still school districts putting their orders together, and there's different ISBN numbers, different packages and bundles that create different numbers. And that can be confusing. So EBSCOed, there's going to be the opportunity to order through EBSCOed and just click on what you want and it's ordered. So that will, so that's yet another benefit for district administrators. It's a time saver. All right, so for technology directors, you'll notice some of these overlap and are similar. The first one that Lisa mentioned earlier that's so important, it's worth reemphasizing, that the content is preloaded into EBSCOed. If it's linked right to your district LMS, and that eliminates, as she said, all those multiple integrations that technology directors spend the summer frantically trying to do in order to have it all up and running for students and teachers on day one. Just with a flip of a switch, there it is. Technology staff no longer has to input codes for every resource because it's preloaded, it's there. They no longer have to double check across different access requirements that may be required in the past. It's there. Again, just as easy as with a flip of the switch, once the purchase is made and the publisher turns on their access, you have the access through EBSCOed. Big time saver for technology director, big time saver. Now, of course, the ultimate users of that are teachers and students and families. Teachers are using and accessing the content in the planning mode. Students are accessing the content when they're studying or logging into the LMS. And busy families, some of whom may have multiple children, trying to check up on their kiddos or trying to log in and see how their students are doing. So again, the fact that that content is preloaded into the district repository means that once a student or a teacher or a family member logs in, they see what they're supposed to see for that content area for that grade level. It's organized that way. You don't even have to, if you're a teacher, you don't have to look through all the different math selections. What will pop up is what you're scheduled to teach. If you're a student, you don't have to find your grade level. What will pop up is what grade, the content for the grade level that you are in. So busy people, whether they're busy teachers trying to juggle all those ingredients, or whether they're students at whatever age they may be, dealing with all the things that students deal with. Sometimes at the secondary level, that's multiple teachers. They're pretty busy. And of course, busy parents working and parenting and juggling the teachers from multiple kids. Everybody has to remember one login, and then everything is there presented to you to access. So logins, links, passwords with EBSCOed are no longer a barrier.
So Patrick mentioned just one login. So let's talk about that just a bit. How do I and my students access EBSCOed? Well, you can do that through Schoology. You can do that through Clever, or you can do that directly through alabama.ebscoed.com. It will all take you to the same place. So you can be assured, no matter what LMS that you're using, you can find your materials that have been allocated to you. So how about teachers? What are they going to see when they log in? They're going to have access to all of their digital materials, which would include their teacher's edition and all of those ancillary resources that come along with a textbook adoption. They're going to find that in their account. It's under something called My Account. So when they get into EBSCOed, any resource that the district has purchased on behalf of each of the schools, that material is going to show up in that teacher's account. And that teacher is going to have, with just a click, access to their textbook and any resources with live links that come with that textbook. So they would be interacting within EBSCOed under that single sign-on, just as they would if they had to log in to that publisher platform site. And what about students? Well, guess what? The consistency continues, because students are going to find their materials just as the teachers found theirs. When they log into the learning management system, whether it's Schoology or any others, they can use their username and password, and their EBSCOed app is already sitting there. And again, with their licensed material that's appropriate and purchased for them will already be in there. No more multiple tiles that they have to go to find different publisher content. So again, just that consistent approach for everybody in how they find their materials. So you see a screenshot here of Accelerate Learning's program STEM Scopes. This is sort of what some things will look like for a student logging in. They will see that licensed content that is sitting there for them, and they'll be able to click on, just as the teacher does, to their actual textbook or any of those resources that come right with the textbook. And then what about our families? We know that many students are learning from home and are getting help from siblings, maybe grandparents or parents, and even others that are hired to come in and help. How are they going to access the materials to help these students? Well, the exact same way. There will be a login that families can access the materials that are also licensed to the student. So just giving them that access to provide that additional help at home.
So as a review, for all the different users, 3 things here to remember. You will access all your new licensed instructional materials in EBSCOed My Account starting August 2021. That's all the new math instructional materials, and older instructional materials are in process of coming in. The goal ultimately is to have other instructional materials, RTI resources, tier 2, tier 3 interventions. All of that ultimately will be loaded in. We hope, but right now we're focused on the new math content area. You'll have the ability to create and manage saved lists and save searches from all sources. So EBSCOed for teachers especially becomes a tool for organizing content and using it later. And you'll be able to search and access all your approved and supplementary materials in one place, no matter the subject area or content area.
So what do I need to do to sign up for EBSCOed if my district is not already signed up and logged in? You can actually sign up through Clever, and there was a link sent out to all of the technology directors in March. And if you don't have your link, then you can contact Patrick or me, and we will get you in touch with our tech team that can help get you connected. You just need to let us know if you're already using Schoology, and if you are, then we can connect you that way. And if you have used Clever for any reason in your district, we can connect you that way. Your rostering will happen automatically and instantly connected. So it's a very simple process for us to get you signed up.
So again, 3 ways to access EBSCOed. Certainly EBSCOed itself, EBSCOed.com, through Schoology app, or through Schoology Online on the computer, or through the Clever application gallery. Any of these 3 ways, it's the same content. So sometimes there's students or teachers in particular might have a different need to access the same content a different way. They can still get to it with that single signer log on.
So EBSCOed is the perfect ingredient in your educational dishes. This is great for accountability. You can prove that students are using the materials that you have spent a great deal of money on. New content comes preloaded. This saves you as technology directors time in all of those integration meetings. This will happen automatically through Publishers Warehouse through those purchases. So no more of these lengthy integration meetings. It is a true single sign-on. You know, we hear single sign-on quite a lot, but that only means single sign-on to somebody's portal or somebody's platform. This truly is a single sign-on in one place within the LMS that you're already signing on to to find all of your materials in one place. Because of the easy access, we're removing those barriers. Remember, that was our goal from the very beginning when we had the light bulb moment. We want students using what we've purchased for them. And your ordering process is going to be so much easier in the future when you have the opportunities to go straight into EBSCO Ed, look at the state adoption list, find the products that you want, click those on, send in your PO, and then have that instant access to your materials. So exciting, brand new day, first time that it's ever happened in the entire United States. So truly, Alabama leads the way. So if you have questions, we want you to contact us. Again, I'm Lisa Silver, and my partner, Patrick Chappell, will also assist. You can email us. You can call us at Publishers Warehouse. We will come and sit down and visit with you and help you get connected. We want you to have the easy access that the state has purchased for you. We look forward to talking with you.
Thanks for joining us today for this presentation.